The Aurora ring station did not float. It presided. It hung in the void like a jeweled collar around the throat of a dead planet, spinning with a centrifugal grace that defied its violent history. Tonight, the station had a riot of Unity Festival lights. Hollow banners the size of starships draped over the docking pylons, proclaiming peace in 12 languages. The synthetic atmosphere inside smelled of expensive ozone roasting meat and political desperation. But Aaron Cole knew the station did not smell like roasted meat. Underneath the scrubbed air recyclers, the Aurora ring smelled of burnt insulation and old fear. Aaron knelt on a grating in Sector 4, his magnetic boots locked down, a hydrospanner clamped in his gloved hand. He was not looking at the festivities. He was looking at a patch of the hull wall 3 meters to his left. To the untrained eye, which included every diplomat royal and tourist currently sipping champagne on the upper decks, the wall looked pristine. It was painted a soothing, creamy white. Aaron knew better. If he scraped away that paint, he would find carbon-scorched titanium. If he went deeper, he would find structural reinforcements welded in a panic 15 years ago. This was the scar of the test fire. The incident that almost cracked the ring in half before it even opened. "You are staring at the wall again, Aaron," a synthesized voice chirped in his ear. "Heart rate is elevating. Do you require a sedative?" "Zip it, Betsy," Aaron muttered, tightening a bolt on the waste recycling conduit. "And stop monitoring my vitals. It is creepy." "I am a diagnostic suit AI," the voice replied, sounding offended. "Monitoring is my primary function. Also, your cortisol levels suggest you are dreading the reception." Aaron grunted, hauling himself up. He looked down at himself. Betsy was the operating system of the Mark II environmental exosuit he currently inhabited. To call it vintage was an insult to antiques. It was a walking disaster of rusted joints, mismatched plating, and unauthorized repairs. The left pauldron was a dull, oxidized orange, while the right leg was scavenged matte black. Across the chest plate, where a hero might wear a medal, someone Aaron 5 years ago while drunk had written "percussive maintenance zone" in permanent marker, with an arrow pointing to the main power coupling. It was ugly. It was heavy. It groaned like a dying beast when he moved. But it was the only suit that had survived the fire 15 years ago, and Aaron trusted it more than he trusted any human being. "I am not dreading the reception," Aaron lied, unlocking his boots. "I am dreading the overtime. Let us go fix that foam sprayer on the red carpet before the dignitaries arrive." 3 levels up, the air was thinner and colder conditioned to suit the physiology of the Fenrathi. Kyla, queen of the Fenrathi, walked with the stride of a predator, forced to pace a cage. She was tall, encased in ceremonial armor that looked less like metal and more like woven moonlight and razor blades. Her helmet was tucked under her arm, revealing a face of sharp angles, pale skin, and eyes the color of a winter storm. Behind her, a retinue of guards and advisors scurried, to keep up their boots clicking nervously on the polished deck. She hated this station. She hated the diplomatic smiles, the false promises of the Unity Festival, and the way the artificial gravity felt slightly wrong against her inner ear. As she rounded the curve of the main concourse, her gaze snagged on a section of the wall near the viewing ports. It was just a white wall. There was no reason for her heart to skip a beat, or for her hand to instinctively tighten into a fist around her helmet. Flashback. Chaos. The gravity failed, spinning wildly, screaming. She was small, floating, tumbling toward a sparking abyss. A hand reaching out. Not a sleek, modern glove. A rough, rusted metal gauntlet. A voice, roaring over the roar of the fire. "Grab my hand, I have got you." She blinked, the memory dissolving into the bright lights of the corridor. "My queen," her advisor, a nervous man named Harith, whispered. "Is something wrong?" Kayla shook her head, the silver braids of her hair swaying. "Nothing. Just ghosts in the machine. Let us proceed. I want this farce over with." She strode forward, her cape flowing behind her like liquid mercury. She needed to be strong tonight. Lord Varric of the Sarathi was here, and he would look for any sign of weakness. The Fenrathi had only joined the alliance 10 years ago, and Varric still treated them like savages who had accidentally stumbled upon spaceflight. She would show them. She was the Wolf Queen. She did not stumble. Aaron was currently stumbling. "Stupid valve," he hissed, wrestling with the pressure nozzle of the emergency suppression system near the entrance to the grand ballroom. The red carpet was rolled out, flanked by velvet ropes and hovering camera drones awaiting the arrivals. The suppression system was leaking. It was a minor issue, but Mia Torres, the Earth ambassador and head of the diplomatic corps, had threatened to fire him out of an airlock if a single drop of water landed on a foreign dignitary. "Pressure is building in the auxiliary chamber," Betsy warned in his ear. I know," Aaron grunted, applying torque to the wrench. The rusty servos of his suit whined in protest. "Just need to bypass the safety seal and bleed it off manually." "That is contrary to Safety Regulation 402, Betsy noted helpfully. "Betsy, safety regulations are for people who do not have a roll of duct tape and a prayer," Aaron muttered. He twisted the wrench. The valve gave way. Unfortunately, it did not bleed off gently. It sneezed. A pressurized blast of fire-suppressant foam, thick white, and expanding rapidly, erupted from the nozzle, just as the double doors swung open. It happened in slow motion. Aaron turned, horror dawning on his face behind the scratched visor of his helmet. Queen Kayla stood in the doorway. She looked magnificent, terrifying, regal. And then the foam hit her. It did not hit her face, thankfully. It caught her right at the knees. The expanding chemical slime coated her silver greaves, splashed onto her armored boots, and splattered up the side of her ceremonial cape. The silence that followed was absolute. The camera drones hovered closer, their lenses zooming in with predatory glee. The music from the ballroom seemed to falter. Aaron stood frozen, the wrench still in his hand, foam dripping from the nozzle like a guilty secret. Kayla looked down at her boots. Then she looked up. Her eyes locked onto Aaron. If looks could dismantle atomic bonds, Aaron would have been reduced to a pile of constituent atoms right there on the carpet. "Oops," Aaron said. The external speakers of his suit were set to high volume, so the word boomed through the hall like a thunderclap. From behind Kayla, a smooth, melodic laugh broke the tension. It was a sound like oil pouring over velvet. Lord Varric stepped out from behind the Fenrathi delegation. The Sarathi noble was tall, slender, and dressed in robes that shimmered with iridescent biological scales. He looked at Kayla's foam-covered legs, then at Aaron's rusted, bulky suit. "Oh, marvelous," Varric said, his voice projecting easily to the gathered press. "A perfect visual metaphor for the Alliance, is it not? The Fenrathi are dragging in the mess, and humanity lacks the technical competence to clean it up." The insult was precise, double-edged, and devastating. The gathered crowd tittered nervously. Kayla's face flushed a dark violet. She ignored the foam, stepping forward with a squelch that ruined her dignity further. She pointed a finger at Aaron. "You," she snarled. "What are you supposed to be, a disposal unit?" Aaron winced inside the helmet. He wanted to apologize, to explain the valve was stuck, but Varric's comment about technical competence had hit a nerve. He looked at the Sarathi Lord, then at the angry Queen. "Maintenance Engineer Aaron Cole, Your Highness," Aaron said, his voice steady despite the burning in his cheeks. "And, strictly speaking, this is fire suppressant, so you are fireproof from the knees down. Complimentary service." The crowd gasped. One did not joke with the Wolf Queen. Kayla's eyes narrowed. She looked ready to draw the plasma blade at her hip. But Varric was watching, smiling that superior serpentine smile. She would not give him the satisfaction of a tantrum. "Clean this up," she said, her voice ice-cold. "Before I decide that the only thing needing disposal here is you." She swept past him, her foam-covered boots, leaving wet white prints on the pristine red carpet. Varric followed, pausing only to glance at Aaron's chestplate. Percussive maintenance zone, Varric read aloud, chuckling. How charmingly primitive. Do try not to rust on the guest human. Aaron watched them go. He felt small. Smaller than he had felt in years. He looked down at the nozzle. That went well, Betsy said. Shut up, Betsy, Aaron whispered. The Guardians' parade was the highlight of the Unity Festival. In theory, it was a ceremonial display of each species' robotic and armored capabilities, a show of how they protected the peace. In reality, it was a dick measuring contest with fusion reactors. The Grand Arena was a colossal dome at the center of the station, seating 50,000 spectators. Millions more watched via hyperlink. The energy was frenetic. Aaron stood in the shadows of the maintenance bay tunnel, holding a mop. He had been relegated to cleaning duty as punishment for the foam incident. He should have left. He should have gone back to his bunk in the sublevels and drank synthetic whiskey until he forgot the look in Kayla's eyes. But he stayed. He wanted to see Earth's entrant. Ladies and gentlemen, sentients of all cycles, the announcer's voice boomed. Next up, representing the Terran Federation, the Guardian Mark V. The crowd cheered politely. Earth was the newest member, the underdog. They needed this win. From the main gate, the Mark V strode out. It was beautiful. Sleek, white enamel gold trim, pulsing blue LED veins. It was piloted by Lieutenant Evans, a 20-year-old prodigy, who had never seen a real war, but had logged 10,000 hours in simulations. Look at that shine, Aaron muttered. Too many moving parts. One grain of sand and that knee joint is toast. Jealousy is an ugly emotion, Aaron, Betsy noted. It is not jealousy. It is physics. In the VIP box, Mia Torres, the head diplomat for Earth, clasped her hands together. She was sweating. Please work, she whispered. Please just walk and salute. Do not embarrass us. Below, beside her, Lord Varric leaned back, sipping a glass of nectar. Queen Kayla sat rigid, her boots cleaned, but her mood still foul. The Mark V reached the center of the arena. Lieutenant Evans initiated the salute sequence. The mech raised a massive arm and stopped. The arm froze at a 45-degree angle. The mech took a step and shuddered. The blue LEDs turned an angry amber. Then the sound system hacked. Instead of the rousing Terran anthem, the mech's external speakers, which had apparently synced with Evans's personal datapad, began to blare audio. It was not martial music. It was a cartoon jingle about a happy little asteroid. I'm a rock. I'm a rock. I'm a happy little rock. Rolling through the void round the clock, the 50,000 spectators went silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then the laughter started. It began as a rumble and grew into a roar. No! Mia Torres gasped, burying her face in her hands. No, no, no! On the field, the Mark V twitched. Command, I'm locked out! Evans' voice panicked over the open comms. Software loop. It is an update. It thinks I am in a diagnostic cycle. Varric leaned forward, his voice projected to the box. Oh dear. It seems humanity's guardian has decided it is nap time. Or perhaps nursery rhyme time. Kayla did not laugh. She stared at the frozen machine with contempt. Form over function, she muttered. Typical. The master of ceremonies, a multi-limbed creature named Zog, floated down. Technical foul for Terra. The participant is non-responsive. Disqualification in 60 seconds unless a substitute completes the obstacle walk. Substitute? Mia Torres looked up, her eyes wild. We do not have a substitute. The budget only covered one mech. Rules are rules, Zog intoned. Field a guardian or forfeit your standing in the Security Council. Forfeit. That meant Earth would be demoted to observer status. No vote on trade. No protection against pirates. It was a disaster. Mia looked around frantically. Her eyes scanned the VIP box, the panicked technicians, the tunnel entrance. She saw a figure in the shadows of the maintenance bay. A bulky, hulking shape. Metal. Humanoid. "There," Mia screamed, pointing a shaking finger. "There we have another Guardian." Every camera in the arena swiveled. The giant screens above the crowd shifted from the frozen singing Mark V to the dark tunnel. The image zoomed in. It showed Aaron Cole. He was holding a mop. He was wearing a suit that looked like it had been chewed by a space shark, and then left out in the rain for a decade. The orange pauldron, the black leg, the duct tape on the elbow, and the handwritten Sharpie percussive maintenance zone. The laughter in the arena did not stop. It changed. It became incredulous. "That," Varric laughed, actually wiping a tear from his eye. "That is your champion Ambassador Torres A walking scrapyard." Mia was hyperventilating, but she was cornered. "He is wearing a pressurized combat-grade suit. He is a Guardian Prime." "The vintage edition," the announcer's voice boomed. "Terran entry accepted Guardian Prime, please approach the starting line." In the tunnel, Aaron froze. "Did she just call me Guardian Prime?" he whispered. "I believe she did," Betsy replied. "Also, your heart rate is now 140 beats per minute. Warning, potential cardiac event imminent." "I am not going out there," Aaron hissed. "I am a mechanic. I have a mop." "The rules state you must complete the obstacle walk," Betsy said. "If you do not, the Federation loses its council seat. Also, Ambassador Torres is looking at you with a facial expression that suggests homicide." Aaron looked up at the VIP box. He could see Mia pleading with her eyes. He could see Varric smirking like the cat who got the cream. And he saw Kayla. The Wolf Queen was leaning over the railing looking down at him. Her face was magnified on one of the side screens. She wasn't laughing. She looked disgusted. "Humans," she said, her voice caught by the ambient mics. "They send a sewer cleaner to do a warrior's job. Do they have no pride?" Pride. The word struck Aaron like a physical blow. He looked at the rusted metal of his gauntlet. 15 years ago, during the test fire, the station had been screaming. Metal was twisting. Everyone had been running for the escape pods. Aaron had been running too. But then he heard the children screaming in the pinned sector. He had turned back. He had put on this suit, brand new, then shining and orange. He had walked into the fire when the structural integrity was at 5%. He had held the blast doors open until his servos stripped and his muscles tore. He had saved them, and he had failed some. He looked at the wall of the arena. Through the holographic overlay, he knew exactly where the structural reinforcement beams were. He knew this station. He had bled for it. He had built it. If he walked away, now Earth was a joke. The people he worked with, the other grease monkeys, the junior engineers, would be the punchline of every joke in the galaxy for the next century. Aaron dropped the mop. It clattered loudly on the deck. "Betsy," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "Reroute power from the atmospheric scrubbers to the hydraulic actuators. Override the safety limiters on the leg servos." "That will void the warranty," Betsy said. "And it will hurt." "I know," Aaron said. He took a breath. The air tasted of stale filters and fear. "Let us show them what a piece of junk can do." Aaron stepped out of the shadows. The lights hit him. They were blinding. The roar of the crowd was a physical wave of sound, a mix of booing and mocking laughter. He walked past the frozen, singing Mark V. He looked like a golem made of trash. His steps were heavy, clang, 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 shaking the deck plates with a weight that the lightweight modern mechs didn't possess. He didn't walk with the fluid grace of a soldier. He walked with the plodding, unstoppable stubbornness of a man who has to fix a sewage leak at 3 a.m. He stopped at the starting line. He looked up at the royal box. He ignored Varric. He looked straight at Kyla. He raised his rusted hand in a salute that was not military, but something older. A worker's acknowledgement. "I am here. The job needs doing." The laughter died down, replaced by a confused murmur. There was something about the way the rusty suit stood solid, unmoving, like a rock in a stream, that made the mockery stick in their throats. Guardian Prime, the announcer said, sounding doubtful. Ready to begin, Aaron gritted his teeth. Okay, Betsy, full power. The suite groaned a sound of tearing metal and awakening giants, and Aaron Cole took the first step into the maze. The first trial was deceptively simple, the Maze of Worlds. It was a shifting landscape of holographic environments and physical obstacles. Ice magma, high gravity, zero gravity. The other competitors, sleek machines from the Andromedan sector, biologically enhanced warriors from the Krell, sped off, leaping over obstacles with ease. Aaron did not leap. He reached the first obstacle, a wall of sheer ice 10 meters high, slicked with synthetic oil. The Krell warrior dug claws in and scrambled up. The Andromedan mech used jump jets. Aaron walked up to the wall. Traction control is non-existent, Betsy noted. We will slide. Not if we cheat, Aaron muttered. He raised his right arm. Extend the plasma cutter. Low intensity. A small, intensely hot flame sputtered to life from his wrist tool, usually used for welding pipes. Aaron jammed the cutter into the ice. Steam hissed violently. He carved a handhold. Then another. He began to climb. It was ugly. It was slow. Chunk after chunk of ice fell as he melted his way up, stabbing the wall with his rusted fingers, boots crunching into the melting pockets. He is melting the obstacle, Varric asked, sounding offended. Is that legal? The rules say traverse the obstacle, Mia Torres said, her voice trembling, but gaining a tiny bit of strength. They do not say how. Aaron crested the wall. He was panting. The suit's cooling system was already complaining. He looked down. He was in last place, but he was moving. The next zone was the gravity well, a stretch of track where gravity fluctuated randomly between 0 G and 3 times Earth standard. The Andromedan mech was struggling here. Its gyroscope was calibrated for constant gravity. It wobbled, tripped, and crashed hard as the gravity spiked to 3 G. Aaron stepped onto the track. Betsy, disengage the gyros. Give me manual control of the mag boots. You will vomit, Betsy warned. Do it, Aaron moved. When gravity vanished, he didn't float helplessly. He magnetized his left boot to the floor, instantly anchoring himself. When gravity slammed down at 3 G, crushing the breath out of his lungs, he didn't fight it to stand upright. He dropped his center of gravity, locking the suit's knee joints into a rigid crouch, becoming a tripod of immovable metal. He shuffled forward. Click-lock, shuffle, click-lock. He passed the struggling Andromedan mech. The pilot inside was panicking, flailing. Aaron paused. He shouldn't stop. It was a race. But he was an engineer. Broken things bothered him. He reached out, grabbed the Andromedan mech by its shiny spoiler, and magnetized his own boots. With a groan of hydraulics that echoed through the arena, he hauled the sleek machine upright and steadied it. Reset your gyro to the local horizon, Aaron's voice boomed over the external speakers. And stop fighting the drop, knees bent. The Andromedan pilot stared at him, then nodded. Aaron let go and kept shuffling. The crowd in the stands went quiet. Then a low ripple of noise started. It wasn't cheering yet. It was confusing. Why did the garbage man help the competition? In the VIP box, Kayla watched the screen intently. Her eyes were fixed on Aaron's left hand, the rusted gauntlet. When the gravity had shifted to 0 G, she had seen the way he moved, the way he twisted his body. It was familiar. It triggered a sensory memory of nausea and fear, and a voice saying, "Grab my hand." Harith, Kayla said quietly to her advisor. Pull the personnel files on the human maintenance staff, specifically anyone who was present on the station 15 years ago. The test fire era? Harith looked surprised. Why those records are sealed by the Alliance Council? Unseal them, Kayla ordered her eyes, never leaving the battered black and orange figure on the screen. Now. The final obstacle of the first heat was the ventilation shaft. It was a narrow, winding tunnel, filled with high-velocity wind and debris. It was designed to test aerodynamic stability. The other mechs streamlined themselves, turning into bullets to cut through the wind. Aaron was a brick. A brick did not cut through the wind. Wind speed 150 kilometers per hour, Betsy reported. If we enter upright, we will be blown backward into the gravity well. Aaron looked at the tunnel. It was industrial. It looked exactly like the primary intake manifold of the Sector 7 reactor. I know this design, Aaron grinned. It was a feral, tired grin inside the helmet. They copied the schematics from the original blueprints. There is a service hatch. Aaron, Betsy warned, you cannot use a service hatch in a race. Watch me. Instead of fighting the wind, Aaron walked to the side of the tunnel entrance, where a panel was flush with the wall. To the audience, it looked like part of the scenery. To Aaron, it was Access Panel 4 Alpha. He jammed his pry bar fingers into the seam and ripped the panel off. Varric stood up. He is destroying the arena. He is improvising, Mia Torres shouted back, though she looked like she might faint. Aaron squeezed his bulky suit into the maintenance crawl space. It was tight. The metal scraped against his pauldrons. Screech. The sound was agonizing like nails on a chalkboard, amplified to concert levels. But there was no wind here. Aaron crawled. He dragged the heavy suit hand over hand, his knees banging against the conduit pipes. It was dark, dirty, and cramped. It felt like home. He emerged from the other side of the wind tunnel, popping a grate open and climbing out right at the finish line. He stood up covered in synthetic dust, a piece of wire mesh stuck to his shoulder. He was the first one across. The silence in the arena was absolute for 5 seconds. The mighty warriors, the sleek mechs, were still battling the wind. The rusty plumber was standing at the finish line, checking his oxygen gauge. Then, a single human in the nosebleed section started clapping. Then another. Then the humans in the crowd roared. It was a sound of sheer disbelief-fueled vindication. Winner of Heat 1, the announcer sounded baffled. Guardian Prime, Aaron waved a tired hand. Betsy, he wheezed. How is the suit's integrity? Structural integrity at 85%. My pride is at 100%, the AI chirped. However, the right knee servo is leaking fluid. It is always leaking fluid, Aaron said. Up in the box, Varric was no longer smiling. He was tapping a finger against his glass. Interesting, Varric murmured. The rat knows the maze better than the architects. This could be problematic. Kayla held the tablet Harith had given her. She was looking at a file. The photo was 15 years younger, a man with bright eyes and no scars wearing a pristine orange engineering suit. Name Aaron Cole. Rank Junior Architect Safety Systems Division. Status, after incident, demoted to maintenance upon request. Kayla looked from the tablet to the figure down below. The sewer cleaner was one of the people who had built the sky they were standing in. Varric, Kayla said, her voice neutral. I believe humans are not as incompetent as you claimed. Varric's eyes narrowed. Luck, my queen. Mere luck. Let us see how he handles the combat simulations. A wrench is not a weapon. Kayla looked at Aaron, who was currently trying to shake the wire mesh off his shoulder. No, she whispered to herself. It is not. But a shield is not a weapon either. And yet it wins wars. Below, Aaron looked up. He caught her eye again. He didn't salute this time. He just stood there, the weight of the suit pulling him down, the weight of the past holding him up. He had survived the laughter. Now comes the pain. The cheers from the first trial had faded, replaced by a tense, vibrating hum that seemed to run through the deck plates of the grand arena. The maze of worlds was no longer just a spectacle of agility. It had become a grinding test of endurance. Up in the control booth, Lord Varric watched the displays with the cold detachment of a scientist dissecting a frog. He tapped a manicured fingernail against the console. Increase the atmospheric pressure in Zone 4, Varric commanded softly, and lower the temperature in the cryosector by another 20 degrees. The technician, a nervous reptilian creature, hesitated. My lord, that exceeds the safety parameters set by the Unity Committee. The sensors on the lighter mechs might freeze. Precisely, Varric smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. We are here to test the limits of our guardians, are we not? If they cannot handle a little chill, how will they handle the void? Do it. Down in the arena, the environment shifted. The holographic sky turned a bruised purple, and the artificial wind began to howl with a new, lethal intensity. Aaron Cole felt the temperature drop inside his suit. The Mark II environmental exosuit did not have the sophisticated climate control of the modern units. It had a heater that smelled like burning hair and a fan that rattled. Internal temperature dropping, Betsy chirped in his ear. I suggest vigorous calisthenics to maintain body heat. Perhaps jumping jacks. Not now, Betsy, Aaron grunted. He was trudging through the cryosector, a landscape of jagged synthetic ice and freezing mist. Ahead of him, a sleek, avian-like mech, representing the Kestrel Dominion, was in trouble. The pilot, a young warrior named Kalen, had relied on his suit's anti-grav repulsors to glide over the ice. But the sudden temperature drop had iced over his intake valves. The repulsors had failed mid-leap. Now the Kestrel mech was pinned under a falling slab of synthetic glacier, its leg twisted at a sickening angle. The ice was heavy, dense, and unnaturally cold. The Kestrel suit's distress beacon was flashing, but its delicate servos were frozen solid. It could not push the weight off. Aaron saw the other competitors rushing past. The tank-like unit from the rock people of Gorn ignored the trapped boy. The swift, four-legged drone from the Cyber Collective simply calculated that stopping would decrease its win probability by 30% and kept running. Help! Kalen's voice crackled over the open frequency, sounding young and terrified. My seals are cracking, I am losing pressure. Aaron stopped. He looked at the finish line, which was tantalizingly close. Then he looked at the pinned mech. Maintenance Directive 1, Aaron muttered to himself. Stabilize the failing component. He turned his bulky, rusted suit around and marched toward the trapped boy. Aaron, Betsy warned. Lifting that slab will exceed the load-bearing capacity of your spinal struts. You will blow a gasket. Then reroute power from the heater, Aaron said. You will freeze. I have enough hot air in me to last a few minutes. Do it. Aaron reached the Kestrel mech. The slab of ice weighed at least 2 tons. He planted his black boot and his orange boot on the slippery ground, engaging the magnetic locks. They sparked and groaned but held fast. He shoved his hands under the edge of the ice. Okay, kid, Aaron said, his voice calm and steady over the comms. Listen to me. When I lift this, you do not panic. You drag yourself out. Do not try to stand. Just drag. I cannot move, Kalen cried. Yes, you can, Aaron growled, the strain already entering his voice. Power to hydraulics. Maximum output. The rusted suit screamed. It was a mechanical shriek of metal grinding against metal. Steam erupted from Aaron's shoulder joints as the hydraulic fluid boiled. Slowly, agonizingly, the 2-ton slab began to rise. Aaron's teeth were clenched so hard, he thought they might shatter. The display inside his helmet flashed red warnings. Structural stress, critical, integrity, failing. He ignored them. He was not a guardian. He was a mechanic. And a mechanic did not leave a job half-finished. Move! Aaron roared. Kalen scrambled out his damaged mech, scraping against the ice. As soon as the boy was clear, Aaron let go. The slab crashed down, shaking the ground. A sharp snap echoed inside Aaron's helmet. A feedback loop of pain shot up his right arm. A hydraulic line had burst in his gauntlet, and a shard of metal had pierced the inner lining, slicing into his palm. Warning, Betsy said. Suit breach in right manipulator. External temperature entering. Also, you are bleeding. I know, Aaron gasped, clutching his wrist. The cold air bit into the open wound like 1,000 needles. He looked down at Kalen. You okay, kid? The young Kestrel pilot looked up at the towering, smoking, rusted ruin of a man. Why? Kalen whispered. "You could have won the heat." "I am paid by the hour, not by the medal," Aaron joked weakly. "Go on. Finish the walk." Up in the stands, the silence had returned. But this time it was different. It was not the silence of shock or mockery. It was the silence of awe. Then, someone started chanting. "Rusty, Rusty, Rusty." It started in the cheap seats, the dock workers, the mechanics, the people who kept the station running while the diplomats drank wine. Then it spread. The humans, the Fenrathi even, some of the Sarathi joined in. Aaron stood there holding his bleeding hand, listening to 50,000 people chant the name of his terrible suit. He shook his head and activated his external speakers. "Whoever is in charge of the ice machine," his voice boomed through the arena. "Send the repair bill to Ambassador Torres." Laughter rippled through the crowd, warm and genuine. In the VIP box, Queen Kayla was gripping the railing so hard, her knuckles were white. She had seen the lift. She had seen the way Aaron had planted his feet, the way his suit had vented steam, the way he had prioritized a life over a victory. It was exactly the same. The memory was no longer a blur. It was sharp. The smell of burning ozone. The scream of twisting metal. She was 6 years old, dangling over a fire that wanted to consume her. And he had been there. That same bulky silhouette. That same orange shoulder. He had held a blast door open with his back, just like he had held the ice, screaming at her to run, while the fire licked at his suit. "He was there," Kayla whispered. The realization hit her like a physical blow to the chest. "He is not just a mechanic. He is the one." "My queen?" Harith asked. Kayla shook her head, composing herself. "Nothing. Humans surprise me, that is all." She looked down at Aaron, who was limping toward the finish line, steam still trailing from his shoulder. Her heart was beating a rhythm she had not felt in years. It was not anger. It was respect. And beneath the respect, something warmer, something dangerous. The second trial was announced an hour later. The cooperative crisis. The announcer's voice was filled with glee. "In the spirit of unity, our guardians will now be paired up, randomized teams to test interspecies cooperation, the objective locate, and extract the hostages from a simulated catastrophic structural failure." The massive screen shuffled the faces of the competitors. It spun and spun, finally landing on 2 portraits. Team 1, Lord Guardian, Kriv Krell Empire, and Unit 734 Cyber Collective. Team 2, Guardian, Prime Terran Federation, and Queen Kyla, Fenrathi Dominion. The crowd roared. The rusty human and the Wolf Queen. It was the pairing everyone wanted to see. Aaron stood in the staging area, watching a medical drone patch up the gash on his palm. It stung, but the adrenaline was keeping the worst of the pain at bay. "You are paired with the Queen," Betsy informed him. "My social interaction protocols suggest you should not mention the foam incident." "Thanks for the tip," Aaron muttered, pulling his glove back on. Kayla approached him. She was in her full combat armor now, silver plating gleaming under the arena lights. She moved with a lethal grace that made Aaron feel like a dump truck parked next to a sports car. She stopped in front of him. She did not look at his face. She looked at the patch on his suit where the steam had vented. "Your hydraulic line is compromised," she said. It was not an accusation. It was an observation. "I bypassed it," Aaron said, tapping his chest plate. "Rerouted the pressure to the secondary loop. It will hold." "It will reduce your lifting capacity by 15%, Kayla countered. "And your reaction time by 0.4 seconds, Aaron blinked. "You know a lot about Mark II hydraulics." "I studied the schematics during the break," Kayla said stiffly. She looked up at his visor. "I do not intend to lose because my partner falls apart." "I will not fall apart, Your Highness," Aaron said. "I am held together by duct tape and stubbornness, the 2 strongest materials in the universe." Kayla almost smiled. It was a tiny twitch of her lips there, and gone in an instant. "We shall see. The scenario is a reactor breach and fire. We need speed. I will take points. You watch my flank. With respect, Aaron said. If it is a reactor breach, speed kills. You run into a superheated pocket and your sensors will blind you. I should take points. I can smell a leak before your sensors pick it up. Kayla bristled. You question my command. No, Aaron said calmly. I question your desire to get melted. I have spent 20 years fixing these pipes, Kayla. I know how this station breathes, and I know how it burns. He used her name, not her title. Kayla stared at him. She saw the seriousness in his eyes, the lack of fear regarding her status, but the abundance of caution regarding the danger. Fine, she said. You lead. But if you lag behind, I leave you. Fair enough. They entered the simulation zone. It was a masterful recreation of a starship corridor in mid-disaster. Smoke pumped in from vents, thick and oily. Debris littered the floor. Sparking wires hung from the ceiling like angry snakes. Heat signature ahead, Kayla murmured, her voice filtering through Aaron's comms. 2 hostages. Simulated life signs are fading. Wait, Aaron said, holding up a hand. He tilted his head. He wasn't looking at the sensors. He was listening to the vibrations on the floor. The ventilation is cycling backward, he said. If we open that door, we feed the fire oxygen. It will backdraft. My sensors show the path is clear, Kayla argued. Your sensors are wrong, Aaron said. He walked to a wall panel and ripped it open. Help me crank this manual override. We need to seal the vent first. Kayla hesitated, then holstered her weapon. She grabbed the wheel next to him. Together, silver armor and rusted steel, they turned the valve. Clang. The vent is sealed. Aaron kicked the door open. Flames licked out, but there was no explosion. The path was clear. Good call, Kayla admitted. Just physics, Aaron said, but his heart was hammering against his ribs. The deeper they went, the hotter it got. The simulation was turning up the intensity. The smoke was getting thicker, obscuring vision. Then, the alarm started. It was not a standard alarm. It was a specific frequency, a rising, shrieking wail that sounded like a mechanical scream. Whoop, 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 whoop. Aaron froze. The world narrowed down to that sound. 15 years ago. The same sound. The hallway twisting. The heat melted the soles of his boots. The smell of burning meat. The feeling of the blast door handle, slipping in his grip because his gloves were melting. Aaron! Kayla's voice was sharp. Aaron did not move. He was shaking. A fine tremor started in his hands and traveled up his arms. His breath came in short, ragged gasps. Heart rate 180, Betsy screamed in his ear. Panic attack detected. Administering verbal sedative. Calm down, Aaron. It is not real. But it felt real. The heat, the smoke, the noise. Aaron! Kayla grabbed his shoulder. Her metal gauntlet clanked against his rusted pauldron. Move, we have to get the hostages. Aaron looked at her. For a second, he didn't see the queen. He saw a little girl floating in zero-G eyes, wide with terror. He forced a swallow. He forced his brain to engage. Yeah, Aaron choked out. Yeah, just checking the structural integrity of the, smoke particles. Very high-quality smoke, expensive. The joke was weak. His voice cracked. Kayla did not laugh. She looked at him through her visor. She saw the sweat running down his face. She saw the way his hands were shaking so hard, they rattled against his chest plate. He was terrified. He was paralyzed with fear. And yet, he took a step forward. Let us go, Aaron said, his voice stronger now, though the tremor remained. Before I decide to take a nap, they pushed forward. They found the hostages, 2 dummies pinned under a collapsed beam in the engineering bay. I will lift, Kayla said. You pull them out. No, Aaron said. That beam is load-bearing for the ceiling. If you lift it wrong, the whole roof comes down. I have to brace for it. With your damaged shoulder, Kayla snapped, you will be crushed. My shoulder is fine, Aaron lied. Just grab the dummies. Aaron stepped under the beam. He wedged his suit into the gap. He extended his legs, locking the servos. He raised his arms, catching the weight of the collapsing ceiling. "Now!" he yelled. Kayla moved fast. She grabbed the dummies and dragged them clear. But the simulation was not done. Varric had added a surprise. As Kayla cleared the zone, a secondary explosion rocked the corridor. The ceiling above Aaron gave way completely. It wasn't just a beam anymore. There was tons of debris. Aaron buckled. His knees hit the floor. The scream of his suit was deafening. "Aaron!" Kayla shouted, turning back. "Go!" Aaron roared. "Get them to the extraction point. The scenario does not end until the hostages are clear." "I am not leaving you." "I am the scenery," Aaron yelled, his voice strained with genuine agony. "Go, I will hold it." A massive chunk of concrete slammed into his bad shoulder. Aaron cried out a sound of pure pain that the external speakers amplified for the whole arena to hear. The percussive maintenance zone on his chest crumpled inward. Kayla hesitated for 1 second. Then, she grabbed the dummies and ran. She cleared the extraction zone. "Mission complete," the automated voice announced. "Simulation ending." The weight disappeared as the holographic debris vanished and the safety fields engaged, catching the real debris before it crushed him. Aaron collapsed, face forward onto the deck. The infirmary was bright white and smelled of antiseptic, a stark contrast to the smoke and fire of the arena. Aaron sat on the edge of a biobed, his upper body stripped of the bulky suit. He wore a grease-stained tank top that revealed a map of scars across his arms and chest. His right shoulder was a mess of bruising, turning a deep, angry purple. A doctor of the Fenrathi species, a tall, avian-like being with spectacles, was applying a regenerative gel to the bruise. "You have microfractures in the clavicle," the doctor said, clicking his beak disapprovingly. "And you have torn the rotator cuff. Again." "It adds character." Aaron winced as the gel stung. "Chicks dig scars, right?" "I am unaware of the excavation preferences of young poultry," the doctor replied dryly. "But I advise against lifting anything heavier than a spoon for 2 weeks." "I have a station to fix," Aaron muttered. "Spoons do not tighten bolts." The door slid open. Queen Kayla walked in. She had removed her helmet. Her hair was somewhat disheveled, and there was a smudge of soot on her cheek. She looked less like a queen and more like a soldier who had just survived a war. The doctor bowed and quietly exited, leaving them alone. Aaron tried to pull his shirt up to cover the bruise, but he hissed in pain and stopped. "Leave it," Kayla said softly. She walked over and stood in front of him. "You are hurt." "Just a scratch," Aaron said, forcing a grin. The suit took the worst of it. "Poor Betsy is going to need a lot of welding." "You froze," Kayla said. She didn't say it unkindly. She said it like she was stating a fact. "When the alarm sounded, you froze." Aaron's smile faded. He looked down at his hands. They were still trembling slightly. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I did." "Why?" Aaron looked at the wall. "That alarm. It is the same frequency they used 15 years ago, during the test fire." Kayla went still. "I was there," Aaron continued, his voice low. "I was in the engineering deck. When that alarm hit, it meant we had failed. It meant people were going to die. I hear that sound in my sleep sometimes. Today it just brought me back." He looked up at her, expecting judgment, expecting the Wolf Queen to mock his weakness. "I hate floating," Kayla said suddenly. Aaron blinked. "What?" "Zero gravity," Kayla said. She crossed her arms, looking vulnerable for the first time. "I hate it. When I was a child during the fire, the gravity failed in my sector. I drifted. I could not grab anything. I was just floating toward the flames. Helpless. No claws, no strength, just nothing." She looked at Aaron. "That is why I wear heavy armor. Even at formal dinners. The weight, it grounds me. It reminds me I am not floating anymore." Aaron looked at the silver armor she wore like a second skin. He looked at the rusted hulk of his own suit in the corner. "We are quite a pair, aren't we?" Aaron said, a soft smile touching his lips. "You wear armor to stay down. I wear a suit to keep the walls up." Kayla stepped closer. She reached out and very gently touched the bruise on his shoulder. Her fingers were cool. "You held the ceiling," she whispered. "You were terrified. You were shaking. But you held it." "I had to," Aaron said. "You were under it." The air between them shifted. It was charged heavy, but not with tension. With something else. "Thank you," Kayla said. "Don't mention it," Aaron replied, his voice husky. "Just maybe don't tell Varric I screamed like a little girl." Kayla laughed. It was a real laugh this time, not a polite diplomatic chuckle. It was a bright bell-like sound that made the sterile room feel warmer. "Your secret is safe with me, Guardian," she said. In the shadows of the observation deck, Lord Varric watched the security feed from the infirmary. He saw the laugh. He saw the touch. He crushed the glass of nectar in his hand. The crystal, shattered sticky liquid dripping down his pale fingers. "This is unacceptable," Varric hissed. "My lord," his advisor asked. "The narrative is shifting." Varric paced the room. "The human was supposed to be a clown, a symbol of Terran incompetence. Instead, he is becoming a martyr. And the Queen is softening." He pulled up Aaron's file on the holographic display. He swiped past the maintenance records and dug deeper into the encrypted archives he had accessed with his stolen codes. He stopped at a schematic. It was a blueprint of the Aurora Ring's central core. The signature at the bottom read, "Lead Architect A. Cole." Varric's eyes widened. "He is not just a mechanic," Varric whispered. "He built the core. He knows. Knows what my lord—" "He knows where the bodies are buried," Varric said darkly. "And more importantly, he knows the back doors. If he realizes what I have done to the energy distribution matrix, he could undo everything." Varric turned to his advisor. "We need to accelerate the plan. The Unity Festival finale. The energy surge I prepared." "Yes, my lord." "Remove the safeties," Varric commanded. "All of them." "But that could destabilize the entire habitat ring," the advisor stammered. "People could die." "Only if the station fails," Varric smiled cruelly. "And if it fails, who better to blame than the incompetent humans and their rusted engineer? We will create a crisis so great that only I can solve it. And in the chaos, Aaron Cole will have an unfortunate accident." Night fell over the Aurora Ring, though night was just a dimming of the artificial suns. The festival continued, music thumping through the hull, but the atmosphere had changed. The lights flickered, occasionally imperceptible to most, but glaring to a trained eye. Aaron could not sleep. His shoulder throbbed and his mind was racing. He walked the service corridors of Sector 4, wearing his civilian jumpsuit. He ran his hand along the pipes, feeling the pulse of the station. It felt feverish. The vibrations were wrong. The hum of the reactor was a fraction of a tone too high. He reached the spot, the scarred wall. The paint was peeling slightly, revealing the blackened titanium underneath. Aaron placed his hand on the scar. The metal was cold. "I fixed you once," Aaron whispered to the station. "I poured my life into these walls. I gave up my name, my rank, everything to keep you spinning." He thought of Kayla. The way she had looked at him in the infirmary. The way she had trusted him in the fire. For 15 years he had hidden in the maintenance bay, terrified that if he took responsibility again, he would fail again. He had let them mock his suit, because it was easier to be a joke than a leader. But looking at the scar, Aaron realized something. The station didn't care if he was afraid. It only cared if he did the job. "If I have to do it again," Aaron asked in silence, "can I save them all this time?" From the shadows at the end of the hall, a figure watched him. Kayla stood silently, her silver cloak wrapped around her. She didn't approach. She just watched the man who spoke to walls, the man who carried the weight of the sky on his bruised shoulder. She saw him lean his forehead against the cold metal. She saw the exhaustion in his posture. "You will not do it alone," Kayla whispered to herself. Suddenly, the lights in the corridor surged brighter, then dimmed to near darkness. A low rumble deep in the belly of the station groaned like a dying beast. Aaron pulled back from the wall, his eyes narrowing. "That," Aaron said, his voice hard, "was not a glitch." He turned and ran toward the engineering deck. Kayla waited for a heartbeat, then followed. The game was over. The real fire was about to begin. The Unity Festival had reached its zenith. The Grand Plaza, a massive domed atrium at the heart of the Aurora Ring, was packed with dignitaries from a dozen star systems. Crystal flutes, chimed silk robes rustled, and the air smelled of expensive perfumes designed to mask the recycled scent of the station. On the central podium, Lord Varric of the Sarathi stood bathed in a golden spotlight. He looked less like a politician and more like a deity who had graciously decided to descend for cocktails. "For too long," Varric's voice purred through the high-fidelity speakers, "we have viewed the Aurora Ring as a fragile thing, a relic of older, clumsier times. But tonight, I present to you the future. My team has recalibrated the energy distribution matrix. We have eliminated the redundancies. We have unlocked the true potential of this station." Standing at the back of the room near a service exit, Aaron Cole leaned against the wall. He was wearing his dress uniform, which was just a clean jumpsuit, with a clip-on tie he had found in a vending machine. His arm was in a sling, throbbing in time with the bass of the background music. "Eliminated redundancies," Aaron muttered to himself. "That is engineer speak for, I removed the brakes to make the car go faster." Beside him, Queen Kayla stood with her arms crossed. She was not looking at Varric. She was watching the crowd. "He speaks well," Kayla said. "Like a snake charming a nest of birds." "Snakes usually bite eventually," Aaron replied. "Betsy run a passive scan on the power grid." "What is he doing?" "Accessing main reactor control," the AI whispered in his earpiece. "He is initiating a sequence labeled harmonic rebalancing. It sounds very musical. It is also overriding the thermal safety limits on the core." Aaron straightened up. "He is pushing the core to 110% capacity. He wants to show off his stability." "Is it stable?" Kayla asked, her eyes narrowing. "It is stable if you do not sneeze," Aaron said. He tapped his comms unit. "Mia, Ambassador Torres, you might want to tell your Sarathi friend to throttle back. The magnetic containment field is vibrating." "Aaron, please," Mia's voice came back strained and hushed. "Do not cause a scene. Varric is announcing the new trade agreement. Just let him finish the speech." On the stage, Varric raised his hands. "Let the light of unity shine brighter than ever before." He pressed a holographic rune on the podium. The lights in the plaza surged. They went from a warm gold to a blinding, sterilizing white. The crowd gasped in appreciation. Then the floor jumped. It was not a sway. It was a violent vertical jolt, as if a giant hand had slapped the bottom of the station. Champagne glasses shattered. A diplomat from the aquatic sector flopped over in his tank. The blinding white light flickered, died, and was replaced by the pulsing crimson of emergency strobes. And then came the sound. It was a low, resonant groan that vibrated in the teeth and bones of everyone present. It was the sound of metal being asked to do something it physically could not do. "That is not harmony," Aaron shouted over the rising panic. "That is thermal expansion. The core is overheating." The massive holographic display above the podium, intended to show the station's health, turned a terrifying shade of red. A mechanical voice, devoid of all emotion, cut through the screams. "Warning. Reactor containment integrity at 60%. Thermal runaway detected in Sector 9. Energy discharge is imminent." Varric stood on the podium, his smile frozen. He was tapping frantically at his console, but the system was not responding. Ambassador Aaron grabbed a terrified Mia Torres by the arm. Get the civilians to the evacuation shuttles. Kayla, I need to get to the command center. Varric locked the local controls. Run, Kayla ordered. She drew her plasma blade, though there was nothing to fight but physics. I will clear a path. The Wolf Queen lived up to her title. She did not shove people. She parted the sea of panicked dignitaries with a terrifying precision. Aaron sprinted behind her, his heavy boots slamming against the deck, his injured shoulder screaming with every step. They burst into the command center 3 minutes later. The room was a chaotic storm of shouting technicians and flashing warnings. Lord Varric was already there, sweating through his iridescent robes, arguing with the station commander. "It is a minor fluctuation," Varric was shouting. "Do not dump the core. If you dump the core, we lose power to the life support for 6 hours. It will be a PR disaster. If we do not dump the pressure, there will not be any PR because there will not be any people." Aaron roared, stepping up to the main console. Varric spun around. "You! This is your fault, your antiquated wiring." "Shut up," Aaron snapped. He didn't look at the Lord. He looked at the data stream. "Betsy, talk to me. What is happening?" "The energy spike melted the primary regulators," Betsy reported rapidly. "The reactor is producing 30% more energy than the capacitors can hold. It needs to vent, now." "Okay," Aaron's fingers flew across the keyboard. "We vent into space. Open the external exhaust ports." "Negative," the station commander, a grim-faced woman named Holloway, said. Varric's rebalancing routed the power through the internal grid to boost the lighting. "The external ports are offline. We have to route the surge through the station to a dispersal point." Aaron froze. He looked at the schematic of the Aurora ring. The station was a wheel. The reactor was in the hub. To vent the energy, they had to send it down one of the spokes to the outer rim and blast it out. There were 2 spokes available. "Path Alpha," Varric said, pointing to the screen. "It is the shortest route. We send the surge down spoke Alpha. It exists near the hydroponics bay." Aaron looked at Path Alpha. His face went pale. "Are you insane?" Aaron asked, his voice low and dangerous. "Spoke Alpha runs directly adjacent to Habitation Module 3. The room went silent. Everyone knew what was in Habitation Module 3. It was the residential sector for families. It was where the station school was located. It was currently night cycle there. 3,000 people, mostly asleep, and a school full of children from 5 different species. "The shielding on Hab 3 is rated for standard radiation," Varric argued, his voice taking on a desperate pleading tone. "It will hold. The surge will bypass them. It is the most efficient route. We minimize structural damage to the station's expensive industrial equipment." "It is a pipe bomb waiting to happen," Aaron yelled. "If that conduit ruptures, and it will, because it is 15 years old, you are going to microwave that entire sector. You will kill 3,000 people in a nanosecond." "It is a calculated risk," Varric slammed his hand on the table. "The alternative is Path Beta, that leads to the industrial sector, the warehouses, the maintenance fabrication plant, the heavy machinery. If you send the surge there, you destroy the economic heart of this station. The cost of repairs will be astronomical. We could lose our funding. The Alliance might abandon the project." Aaron looked at the screen. Path Beta, the industrial sector. It wasn't just warehouses. It was the maintenance bays. It was the workshop where he had spent the last 10 years. It was the bunk room where he slept. It was the place where he kept the old photos of the original crew, the ones who didn't make it. It was the only place in the universe that felt like his. "It is just machinery," Aaron whispered. But his heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. "It is billions of credits," Varric countered. "And nobody lives there. It is empty at this hour." "The shielding on Hab 3 might fail," Commander Holloway said, her face gray. "But the industrial sector definitely will not survive. We would be wiping out the station's ability to repair itself for years." "We take the risk with Hab 3, Varric insisted, looking around the room, trying to rally the terrified council members who had followed them in. "We cannot bankrupt the station to avoid a statistical improbability. The shields will hold. I designed the upgrade myself." Some of the council members were nodding. They were thinking of budgets. They were thinking of the trade agreement. They were scared, and Varric sounded confident. "Do it," a Sarathi diplomat said. "Route to Path Alpha." "No," Aaron said. He stepped between Varric and the console. "Move aside, engineer," Varric hissed. "You are relieved of duty." Aaron didn't move. He looked at the council. "I am the one who welded those conduits in Hab 3. I know every bolt. They cannot take this load. You are not betting credits. You are betting on children." "He is emotional," Varric scoffed. "He is traumatized. Guards, remove him." 2 security drones hovered forward. "Stand down." The voice was not loud, but it cut through the noise like a diamond cutter. Queen Kayla stepped forward. She placed her hand on the hilt of her sword. She did not draw it, but the threat was clear. "The Fenrathi Dominion," Kayla said, her eyes locking onto Varric's, "does not accept betting children to save a warehouse." "This is not your jurisdiction, my queen," Varric sneered. "There are Fenrathi cubs in that school," Kayla said. "There are human children. There are Sarathi hatchlings. You want to gamble with their lives to save your budget? You will have to go through me." She turned to Aaron. She saw the look on his face. She saw the devastation in his eyes as he looked at the blinking red line of Path Beta. She knew. She remembered him talking about his workshop. She knew that for a man who had no family, that workshop was his home. "Aaron," she said softly. Aaron looked at her. "Do it," Kayla said. "Save them." Aaron closed his eyes for a second. He took a breath that shuddered in his chest. "Betsy," Aaron said, his voice flat and dead. "Override the safety protocols on Path Beta. Target the surge for the primary fabrication plant in the industrial sector." "Warning," Betsy said. "That destination contains your personal quarters, and your vintage comic book collection, and me. My server core is located in that bay." Aaron flinched. He had forgotten. Betsy's mainframe was down there. "Upload yourself to the suit's local storage," Aaron said, his voice cracking. "Now, Betsy. That is an order." "Transferring consciousness," Betsy chirped. "I will miss the extra RAM. Goodbye home." "Aaron, no!" Varric lunged for the console. Kayla moved faster. She caught Varric by the throat of his expensive robe and slammed him back against the bulkhead. She held him there, her boots locking to the deck. "Let him work," Kayla snarled. Aaron typed the command. "Authorization, Cole Aaron. Clearance Architect Level Alpha." The system accepted the code. It remembered him. Venting in 3, 2, 1. Aaron hit the execute key. The station screamed. This time, the sound was not a groan. It was a shriek of tortured metal. The floor buckled. On the main view screen, they saw the external camera feed. A beam of pure, blinding violet energy erupted from the side of the station. It did not go into space. It slammed into the sprawling structure of the industrial sector. It was silent in the vacuum, but the destruction was absolute. The fabrication plant where Aaron had fixed Kayla's boots, where he had built his first bot, vaporized instantly. The explosion rippled outward, tearing through the warehouses, the storage bays, and the crew quarters. Debris scattered into the void, burning metal, shattered glass, the remnants of 1,000 repaired machines. The lights in the command center flickered and then stabilized. The red warning bars turned green. "Reactor pressure normalizing," the computer announced cheerfully. "Core temperature dropping. Danger past." Aaron stared at the screen. Where the industrial sector had been, there was now just a jagged, glowing stump of metal venting atmosphere into the dark. "Hab 3 status," Commander Holloway asked, her voice trembling. "Green," a technician reported. "Radiation levels are normal. No hull breaches. They did not even wake up." The room let out a collective breath. It was a sound of immense relief. Aaron did not breathe. He stood looking at the empty space on the screen. "You idiot," Varric whispered, adjusting his crumpled robes as Kayla released him. "You just burned 3 billion credits. You set us back a decade." Aaron turned slowly. He looked at Varric. There was no anger in his face anymore, just a profound, heavy exhaustion. "Send the bill to my bunk," Aaron said. "Oh wait, you cannot. It is gone." He walked past Varric. He walked past the stunned council members. He walked out of the command center without looking back. 2 hours later, the panic had subsided. The Unity Festival had been officially suspended, replaced by emergency damage control teams. The news feeds were already spinning the story. Lord Varric was on every channel looking grave and heroic. He was calling it an unforeseen seismic anomaly and praising the robust safety systems that he had installed. He mentioned the loss of the industrial sector as a regrettable but necessary sacrifice, carefully omitting who had made the choice or who had caused the problem. Aaron did not watch the news. He was in an airlock wearing his battered Mark II suit. He had overridden the safety locks to open the outer door. He walked out onto the skin of the station using his mag boots. The view was devastating. The wound in the station's side was jagged and raw, still glowing with residual heat. The silence of space was heavy. He walked to the edge of the wreckage. This had been the roof of the fabrication bay. He knelt down. His suit's lights cut through the floating dust. There was nothing left. His workbench, his tools, the coffee mug that had the chip in the rim, the picture of his team from the first construction crew. All of it was just atoms now. He felt a strange hollowness in his chest. It wasn't just stuff. It was his anchor. For 15 years he had stayed in that workshop because it was the only place where he felt he had earned the right to exist. He fixed things there. If he fixed enough things, maybe he could fix the past. Now, he had been forced to destroy it to save the future. Something glittered in the debris caught in a magnetic field trap near a structural beam. Aaron reached out. His clumsy, rusted fingers brushed the object. It was a piece of twisted titanium, a nameplate. It was scorched bent, almost double, but the engraving was still visible. Chief Engineer J. Mason. It wasn't his nameplate. It was his mentor's. The man who had died in the test fire 15 years ago. The man who had yelled at Aaron to run. Aaron had kept it on his desk as a reminder. Aaron held the piece of metal. He stared at it until his vision blurred. "I tried, Jack," Aaron whispered inside his helmet. "I tried to keep it all safe." "You did," Betsy's voice was soft in his ear. "You saved 3,412 people today. Statistical analysis suggests Jack Mason would be proud. Also, I have successfully backed up my core functions. However, I lost my library of knock-knock jokes." Aaron let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "We can get new jokes, Betsy." He stood up, clutching the nameplate. He looked out at the stars. They looked colder than usual. "You chose the right side," he told himself. "You chose the right side." But it still felt like he had cut off his own arm. In the observation deck overlooking the wreckage, Queen Kayla stood alone. She had dismissed her guards. She needed to see the damage. She needed to understand what he had done. The door hissed open behind her. She didn't turn. She saw the reflection in the glass. It was Aaron. He had come back inside, but he hadn't taken off the suit. He looked like a ghost in a shell. He walked over and stood beside her. He didn't bow. He didn't speak. He just looked at the jagged scar on the station. "It is ugly," Aaron said finally. "It is a wound," Kayla replied. "Wounds heal, but they leave scars." "I seem to collect them," Aaron said. He opened his hand, showing her the twisted nameplate. Kayla looked at it. She understood immediately. "Varric is already rewriting history," Kayla said, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "He claims the energy surge was a natural phenomenon. He claims he directed the venting procedure. He is painting himself as the savior, and you as the blunt instrument he had to use. Let him, Aaron said. He sounded tired. I do not care about the credit. I care that the kids in HAB 3 are sleeping right now. I care, Kayla said fiercely. She turned to face him. I care that you just burned your life down for people who mocked you yesterday. That is the job, Aaron shrugged. The servo in his shoulder whined. Guardians protect, even the ungrateful ones. Especially the ungrateful ones. Kyla looked at his face through the open visor. She saw the lines of fatigue, the sadness that went down to the bone. When the Sarathi and Fenrathi formed the alliance, Kyla said quietly, my people had to burn our forests. It was the only way to kill a plague that the Sarathi brought with them. We burned our home to save our future. Aaron looked at her. I stood on a hill and watched the trees burn, Kayla continued. I felt hollow, like I was not a queen anymore, just a girl standing in ash. How did you get over it? Aaron asked. I didn't, Kayla said. I just realized that the forest was not the trees. The forest was the pack. As long as the pack survived, the forest could grow back. She reached out and placed her hand on the cold metal chestplate of his suit. You lost your workshop, Aaron. You did not lose your home. Aaron looked at her hand, then up at her eyes. They were fierce and silver and kind. I do not know where I go from here, Aaron admitted. I am an engineer without a toolbox, a guardian without a post. Then you build a new one, Kayla said, and until then you have a place with the pack. It was a simple offer, but coming from the Wolf Queen, it was a blood oath. Aaron swallowed the lump in his throat. He placed his gloved hand over hers. Thank you, he whispered. They stood there in silence, watching the debris drift away into the dark. They were two broken people, standing in a broken station, looking at the void. But for the first time in 15 years, Aaron didn't feel alone in the dark. Far below them, in the secure luxury of his private suite, Lord Varric paced. He had survived the immediate political fallout. His silver tongue had spun a web of lies that the council was happy to accept, because the truth was too expensive. But he was not celebrating. He was watching a security feed. It showed the observation deck. It showed the rusty human and the Wolf Queen standing together, hands touching. Varric stopped pacing. He stared at the image. He had expected Aaron to be broken. He had expected him to be crushed by the loss of his sector, to fade back into the obscurity of the maintenance tunnels. But he wasn't broken. He was standing straighter than before. And the Queen was looking at him not with pity, but with loyalty. This is dangerous, Varric murmured. My lord, his advisor asked from the shadows. Individually they are manageable, Varric said, his voice cold. The human is a tool. The Queen is a figurehead, but together, a martyr and a monarch. He tapped the screen, freezing the image on their joined hands. That is a revolution waiting to happen. Varric turned to his advisor. Get me the encryption keys for the core memory, Varric ordered. The deep files, the ones Aaron Cole wrote 15 years ago. But, my lord, those are locked by biometric DNA coding. Only the original architects can access them. Exactly, Varric smiled, and it was a smile full of teeth. We are going to need the human for one last task, and then we are going to make sure he never fixes anything again. He looked back at the screen. Enjoy the view, Aaron Cole, Varric whispered. It will be your last. The next morning, the station was solemn. The festival decorations had been taken down. The mood was somber, but there was an undercurrent of gratitude. People whispered about the miracle of HAB 3. Aaron was in the temporary quarters assigned to him, a small, sterile guest room in the diplomatic wing. It was too clean. It smelled of lavender. He sat on the bed, turning the twisted nameplate over and over in his hands. There was a knock at the door. Aaron stood up, groaning as his stiff muscles protested. He opened the door. It was not room service. It was a courier drone. Delivery for Aaron Cole, the drone chirped. Priority Alpha, from the Fenrathi delegation. The drone extended a tray. On it sat a small velvet box. Aaron frowned. He took the box and opened it. Inside was not a metal. It was a tool. It was a hydrospanner. But not a standard-issue one. This one was crafted from Fenrathi, silver steel. The grip was wrapped in leather. It was perfectly balanced, heavy and solid. There was a note. For the architect. To help build the new forest. Aaron picked up the tool. It fit his hand perfectly. He felt a smile tug at the corner of his mouth. It was the first real smile he had felt in 24 hours. "Okay, Betsy," Aaron said to his suit, which was standing in the corner like a silent sentinel. "Upload the specs for the new workshop. I think I want to add a window this time." "Excellent choice," Betsy's voice came from the suit. "May I suggest we also install a fire suppression system that does not foam the guests?" "Everyone is a critic," Aaron muttered. He gripped the silver spanner. He wasn't sure what was coming next. He knew Varric was still out there plotting. He knew the station was still wounded. But he had a tool. He had a friend. And he had a job to do. Aaron Cole walked out of the room. It was time to get back to work. The silence that followed the destruction of the industrial sector was heavy, thick, and suffocating. It was not the peaceful silence of the void, but the stunned, ringing silence of a survivor who checks their limbs and finds one missing. The Aurora ring was wounded. The jagged scar on its side where the fabrication plant had once stood was sealed off by emergency force fields, shimmering like a blue bandage over a raw burn. Inside the station, the Unity Festival was officially over, replaced by a somber, frantic atmosphere of damage control and investigation. In a secure conference room on the command deck, the air was cold. The table was covered in holographic displays, scrolling through streams of data that cascaded like digital waterfalls. Mia Torres, the Earth ambassador, sat at the head of the table. She looked exhausted. Her dress uniform was wrinkled, and she was nursing a cup of lukewarm synthetic coffee. Across from her sat the head of the technical investigation team, a sharp-eyed engineer from the Cyber Collective named Unit 4. Aaron Cole stood in the corner, leaning against the wall. He was still wearing the undersuit of his Mark II armor, the heavy metal plating removed for repairs, leaving him in the padded, sweat-stained thermal liner. His right arm was in a sling, and he looked like he had not slept in 3 days. "We have isolated the command pathway Lord Varric used," Unit 4 stated, their voice a flat, synthesized drone. It was not a hack. It was an exploitation of a legacy feature. Mia rubbed her temples. "Explain it to me like I am a politician, not a computer." "The energy grid has a tertiary backup layer," Unit 4 explained, projecting a complex schematic into the air. "It is a ghost channel, a hard-wired set of commands designed to override all safety protocols in the event of a total system failure. It allows a single user to manually redirect power anywhere in the station, bypassing the central AI." "A backdoor," Mia said, her eyes narrowing. "A master key," Aaron corrected from the corner. His voice was raspy. "It was built for the construction phase, in case the main computer went rogue, or the reactor started to melt down before the software was finished. It was supposed to be sealed when the station went online." Mia turned to look at him. "How do you know that Aaron—" Aaron shrugged a painful motion that made him wince. "I read the manual. Section 8, Paragraph 4. "There is no manual for this layer," Unit 4 interrupted. "This code is deep architecture. It is signed with a cryptographic key that dates back 15 years. The signature is encrypted, but the initials on the original source code are visible." Unit 4 tapped a key. 2 letters rotated in the holographic air, glowing a soft, accusatory blue. AC. The room went very quiet. The hum of the ventilation system seemed to get louder. Mia looked at the letters. Then she looked at Aaron Cole. "AC," Mia repeated slowly. "Aaron Cole." Aaron did not move. He stared at the letters as if they were a weapon pointed at his chest. Coincidence, he said. Common initials. Could be anyone. Alan Carter, Amanda Clark, alien cyborg. Aaron, Mia said, her voice, losing its diplomatic polish and becoming sharp with suspicion. You are not just a maintenance worker, are you? You knew exactly how to route that surge yesterday. You knew the load-bearing limits of Habitation 3 down to the decimal point. And now we find a master key signed with your initials. I am a good mechanic, Aaron said, pushing himself off the wall. Good mechanics know their machines. Look, if you do not need me to fix a toilet or weld a plate, I am going to go check on my suit. Betsy gets lonely. He turned to leave, his movement stiff and evasive. Stop, Mia commanded. We are talking about the security of the entire station. If you were part of the founding team. I was a junior engineer. Aaron snapped, spinning around. The sudden anger in his voice startled everyone. I carried toolboxes. I fetched coffee. I watched the big screens while the important people made the decisions. Do not pin this on me, Mia. I just fixed the pipes. He stormed out of the room, the door hissing shut behind him. Mia watched him go, her expression troubled. She looked back at the holographic initials. He is lying, Mia whispered. Probability is 99%, Unit 4 agreed. Outside in the corridor, Aaron leaned his forehead against the cool metal of the bulkhead. His heart was hammering against his ribs. He felt like he couldn't breathe. The walls of the station, usually his friends, felt like they were closing in. He needed to get away. He needed to be somewhere where the ghosts were quiet. He began to walk aimlessly at first, then with purpose. He headed toward Sector 4, toward the scar. He didn't notice the shadow following him. Queen Kayla had been standing in the alcove near the conference room. She had not intended to eavesdrop, but Fenrathi's hearing was acute. She had heard every word. AC, 15 years, the master key. She stepped out of the shadows, her silver boots making no sound on the deck. She watched Aaron's retreating figure. He walked with a limp, his head bowed, the weight of the invisible world pressing down on his injured shoulder. She reached into her memory. She pulled out the fragment that had been haunting her since the first trial. The smell of burning ozone, the scream of metal, the feeling of weightlessness, and a hand. She looked at her own hand encased in a sleek, silver gauntlet. Then she remembered the texture of the hand that had saved her. It had been rough, pitted metal, rusted orange paint. And she remembered the voice, distorted by a helmet speaker. Yes, but the cadence was the same. The way he used humor to mask fear. Gotcha. Hold on, little wolf. Do not let go, or I will have to fill out paperwork. Kayla's eyes widened. The realization hit her, not like a lightning bolt, but like the rising sun, inevitable and blinding. She followed him. Sector 4 was deserted. The festivities had never reached this far down, and now, with the station in mourning for the industrial sector, the hallways were dim and silent. Aaron stood before the old scar on the wall, the one he had checked before the festival began, the one he had touched 1,000 times. He traced the blackened edge of the titanium with his good hand. You are a coward, Aaron, he whispered to the silence. You run away from the metal, you run away from the truth, and now you are running away from her. Who are you running from? The voice was soft, but it carried the authority of a queen. Aaron froze. He didn't turn around. He stayed facing the wall, his hand resting on the burn mark. Go away, Kayla, he said, his voice thick. Please, I am not in good company right now. I did not come for company, Kayla said. She stepped closer. The scent of her winter air and ozone drifted to him. I came for the truth. You heard Mia, Aaron said, resting his forehead against the wall. I am just a grease monkey who got lucky with a manual. Liar, Kayla said. She reached out, grabbing his good shoulder and spinning him around. She slammed him back against the wall, not violently enough to hurt, but hard enough to trap him. Her eyes were blazing. Do not lie to me, Aaron Cole. Not here. Not in front of this. She gestured to the scar on the wall. Aaron looked at her. He looked at the fierce intelligence in her eyes, and he knew the game was over. The mask he had worn for 15 years had finally cracked. "What do you want to know?" Aaron asked, his voice breaking. "This mark," Kayla said, pointing to the scorched metal. "Everyone says it was a structural failure during the test fire. They say the human engineers were negligent. They say it was an accident." "It was not an accident," Aaron said. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, his legs sprawled out. He looked up at the ceiling. It was arrogance. Kayla sat down beside him. She didn't care about the dust on her royal robes. She sat cross-legged facing him. "Tell me." Aaron closed his eyes. 15 years ago, he began, his voice low and raspy. "I was 25. I was brilliant. I was arrogant. I was the lead architect for the Safety Systems Division. Not a junior engineer. The lead." He opened his eyes and looked at his hands. The council wanted the Aurora ring to open early. The Unity Treaty was being signed, and they needed a symbol. They pushed the schedule up by 6 months. My boss, Jack Mason, fought them. He said the thermal regulators weren't calibrated. But I told him I could fix it with software. Aaron laughed, a bitter, dry sound. "I wrote a patch. The ghost channel. It was supposed to balance the load dynamically. It worked in the simulations. I was so proud of it." "And then the fire happened," Kayla whispered. "We initiated the test fire," Aaron continued. "We brought the reactor up to 80%. At first it was fine. Then the sensors in Sector 9 spiked. My code didn't account for the thermal expansion of the physical conduits. The software was perfect, but the metal was real. It started to warp." He took a shaky breath. "The fire spread in seconds. The gravity stabilizers failed. The station started to spin off axis. We had thousands of workers on board and their families. It was chaos." Kayla watched him. She could see the reflection of the fire in his eyes, burning across the decade and a half. "I had a choice," Aaron said. "The main vents were jammed. The only way to stop the reactor from cracking the station in half was to divert the plasma manually into the emergency exhaust." "The one that wasn't finished," Kayla guessed. "Yeah," Aaron nodded. "I put on the suit, the prototype Mark II. It was brand new then, bright orange. I went down into the inferno. I opened the valve by hand. The plasma vented right through the hull, right here." He tapped the wall behind him. "It saved the station," Aaron said softly. "But the venting caused a backdraft in the adjacent corridor. The gravity failed completely there. People were trapped, floating in the smoke." He looked at Kayla. "I went in. I had to. It was my code that broke the world. I had to pull them out." "You saved them," Kayla said. "Not all of them," Aaron whispered. "I grabbed who I could. A mechanic, a diplomat, a teacher, and a group of cubs." Kayla stopped breathing. "They were huddled together," Aaron said, staring at his hands as if he could see the scene playing out in his palms. "Floating in a ball of fur and fear. The gravity was twisting, tearing the room apart. I tied my safety line to a bulkhead and jumped. I grabbed them, one by one. I shoved them into the airlock." He looked at Kayla, his eyes wet. "There was one little one. The last one. She had drifted too far. The fire was between us. She was screaming. Not crying, screaming. A high-pitched howl." "She was terrified," Kayla whispered, her voice trembling. "I reached out," Aaron said. "My suit was overheating. The warning alarms were deafening. I stretched my hand out as far as it would go. I yelled at her, 'Grab my hand, I have got you.'" "And she grabbed it," Kayla said, tears spilling over her silver cheeks. Her claws scratched the paint. "She held on so tight she dented the metal." Aaron nodded. "She did. I pulled her in. I shielded her with my body while the blast door closed. I felt her heart beating against my chest plate. It was so fast, like a hummingbird." He looked at Kayla, really looked at her. I didn't know she was a princess, Aaron said. I just knew she was a kid who shouldn't have been there. I didn't know she would grow up to be a queen who hates me. I never hated you, Kayla choked out. I hated the memory. I hated the fear. After the fire, Aaron continued, looking away. The council covered it up. They blamed a materials defect. They gave me a medal for bravery. They called me the hero of the Aurora. He made a disgusted noise. I couldn't take it. I threw the medal in the recycler. I resigned my commission. I wiped my name from the files. I demoted myself to the lowest rank possible maintenance. I kept the suit that had the scratches from her claws, and I promised myself I would never be responsible for a decision like that again. I would just fix the pipes. Just the pipes. Silence stretched between them. It was a heavy, painful silence, but it was clean. The secret was out. Kayla moved. She didn't stand up. She shifted on her knees until she was right in front of him. "You idiot," she said, but her voice was fierce and tender. "Yeah," Aaron agreed. "I know. You spent 15 years punishing yourself for a mistake that you fixed," Kayla said. "You saved the station, Aaron. You saved my pack." "I killed people, Kayla," Aaron said, his voice cracking. "My arrogance killed them." "And your bravery saved the rest," Kayla countered. "Do you think the dead want you to rot in a basement? Do you think they want the man who saved the station to be a ghost?" She reached out and placed her hands on either side of his face. Her skin was cool against his stubble. "Look at me," she commanded. Aaron looked at her. "I am alive," Kayla said. "My people are alive, because of you. That little girl you pulled from the fire, she grew up. She became a queen. She learned to be strong because she saw a human walk into fire to save her." "I am not a hero," Aaron whispered. "No," Kayla agreed. "Heroes are shiny. Heroes are like the Mark V, perfect, and useless when the power goes out. You are not a hero, Aaron. You are a guardian. You are the rust that holds the iron together." She leaned forward and rested her forehead against his. It was a gesture of immense intimacy in Fenrathi culture, a sharing of breath, a sharing of souls. "Stop apologizing for surviving," Kayla whispered. "Stop apologizing for being the one who caught me." Aaron let out a shuddering breath. He felt something inside him break not a bone, but the hard, cold shell he had built around his heart for 15 years. He raised his good hand and covered hers. "I was so scared I would drop you," he confessed. "You didn't," Kayla said. "You never did." They stayed like that for a long moment, the queen and the mechanic huddled on the floor of a deserted corridor, while the station spun silently around them. Then Aaron's comms unit beeped. It was a harsh, jarring sound that shattered the moment. Aaron pulled away, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. He cleared his throat. "Yeah. Aaron," Mia's voice came through, sounding urgent. "Where are you? We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" Aaron asked, his voice returning to a semblance of normalcy, though it was thicker than usual. "The council is convening an emergency session," Mia said. "We have figured out how to lock Varric out permanently. We need to perform a system root reset. It wipes all the legacy codes, including the back doors." "That sounds like a good plan," Aaron said, glancing at Kayla. She was watching him, her eyes steady. "There is a problem," Mia said. "To initiate a root reset, we need the physical key, the anchor key. It was issued to the lead architect 15 years ago. We do not know who has it. The records are encrypted." Aaron closed his eyes. "Of course. The anchor key." "If we do not find the key in 1 hour," Mia continued, "the system will automatically reboot into safe mode, and Varric's ghost code might be able to re-embed itself. We need the architect Aaron. Do you know where he is?" Aaron looked at the rusted gauntlet of his suit lying on the floor next to him. Embedded in the wrist computer under a layer of grime and duct tape was a small, unassuming port. A port that contained the cryptographic key to the entire station. He looked at Kayla. She didn't say anything. She just raised an eyebrow, a challenge in her silver eyes. "Are you done hiding?" Aaron took a deep breath. He picked up his helmet. He looked at the percussive maintenance zone written on the chest. "Yeah," Aaron said into the comms. "I know where he is." "Who is he?" Mia asked. "Is he at the station?" "He is," Aaron said. He stood up, offering a hand to Kayla. She took it, and he pulled her up. "Tell the council to gather in the Great Hall. Tell them the janitor is coming to clean up the mess." Mia paused. "Aaron, are you saying—" "I am saying I am done fixing toilets, Mia," Aaron said. "I am coming to fix the core." He cut the connection. He looked at Kayla. She was smiling. It wasn't a diplomatic smile. It was a wolf's smile, sharp, dangerous, and proud. "You are going to make a scene," Kayla said. "Well," Aaron grinned, and this time the grin reached his eyes. "If I am going to lose my job, I might as well go out with a bang. Besides, I have a date with a system reset." "A date?" Kayla teased. "Figure of speech," Aaron said, his face heating up slightly. "Unless you want to come, I could use some backup, in case I trip." "I will not let you travel," Kayla said. She adjusted her cape. "Walk with me, architect. Let us go show them what rust is made of." The Great Hall was more crowded than it had been for the festival. Rumors had spread. The Rusty Human had saved the station. The Rusty Human was a fraud. The Rusty Human was a secret agent. The entire High Council was seated on the dais. Lord Varric was there, too stripped of his ceremonial sash, but still looking defiant. He was banking on the fact that without the key, they couldn't prove his intent or lock him out. "This is a witch hunt," Varric was saying loudly to a reporter drone. "I saved the station from a critical failure, and now they want to blame me for—" The doors at the far end of the hall boomed open. The chatter stopped. Aaron Cole walked in. He was not wearing a dress uniform. He was not wearing a tuxedo. He was wearing a suit, the Mark II environmental exosuit. He had reassembled it. It was battered. It was scorched. The new dent in the chest plate from the falling ceiling was deep and ugly. The orange paint was almost gone, replaced by the gray of bare metal and the black of soot. He clanked into the room. Thud, thud, thud. He didn't look at the crowd. He didn't look at the cameras. He walked straight toward the central console, where the station's AI interface waited. Queen Kayla walked beside him, a step behind, her hand resting on the hilt of her sword. She was his honor guard. "Citizen," the head counselor, a wizened being with 4 eyes, spoke up. "This area is restricted. We are waiting for the lead architect." Aaron didn't stop. He reached the bottom of the dais. He looked up at Varric. "You are in my seat," Aaron said. Varric laughed. "Your seat? You are a delusional mechanic. Go back to your tunnels." Aaron ignored him. He climbed the stairs. The suit servos whined loudly in the silence. He reached the main console. He looked at the interface. It was flashing "Insert Anchor. Key to initiate reset." Aaron raised his left arm. He flipped open a panel on his wrist gauntlet that nobody had ever seen him open. Underneath was a gleaming, pristine data spike. He looked at Mia Torres, who was standing in the front row, her hands covering her mouth. "I told you," Aaron said, his voice amplified by the suit's speakers. "I am a good mechanic." He slammed his wrist into the console. Click. The screens around the hall turned blue. A holographic projection exploded into the air. It was a DNA spiral, followed by a file that had been locked for 15 years. Identity confirmed. "Welcome back, lead architect Aaron Cole." A collective gasp went through the hall. Varric's face went the color of curdled milk. "Impossible," he hissed. You are the one, the ghost." Aaron didn't answer. He typed a command with his free hand. "Command purge. Legacy overrides. Target user, Varric. Access denied, the computer chirped. User Varric has administrator privileges. Override authorization, Aaron said clearly. Cole Alpha 1. Revoke all privileges for user Varric. Reason gross negligence and endangerment of the station. Processing. The lights flickered. Authorized. Varric's personal console went dark. His datapad sparked and died. The security drones flanking him suddenly turned, aiming their sensors at him. You have no right, Varric screamed. I am a lord of the Sarathi. And I am the guy who built the floor you are standing on, Aaron said calmly. And I can turn off the gravity under your feet if you do not shut up. Varric, shut up. Aaron turned to the council. He looked at the thousands of faces watching him. He felt the weight of the suit, the heat of the spotlight. I know what you are thinking, Aaron said to the room. Why did I hide? Why did I let you think I was just a janitor? He touched the chest plate of his suit. Because 15 years ago I made a choice that cost lives. I thought if I hid, I could not hurt anyone else. I thought if I was just a pair of hands I wouldn't have to be a conscience. He looked at Kayla. She nodded. But a wise woman told me recently, Aaron continued, his voice softening, that you cannot fix the future if you are afraid of the past. This station is not perfect. It is rusted. It is patched together. It has scars. He tapped the dent in his chest. But that is what makes it strong. We break. We fix it. We survive. He looked back at the console. System reset complete, he announced. The station is secure, and for the record, he looked at Varric. The ghost channel is closed, permanently. He pulled his wrist free from the console. The silence held for a heartbeat. Then, it wasn't applause that broke it. It was Mia Torres. She stepped forward, tears in her eyes. She didn't clap, she saluted. Not a military salute, but an engineer's salute, a fist over the heart. Then the technicians in the back of the room did it. Then the security guards. Aaron stood there stunned. He had expected anger. He had expected a trial. He got respect. He looked at Kayla. I think I kept my promise, he said to her, his external speakers off just for her. I did not drop them. No, Kayla said, stepping up beside him. You carried us all. So, Aaron said, looking at the crowd, does this mean I get a raise because my workshop is gone and I need to buy a new coffee maker? Kayla laughed, and for a moment the politics, the danger, and the scars faded away. There was just a man in a rusty suit and a queen who was finally home. But the ceremony wasn't over. The High Counselor stepped forward. Architect Cole, he said, the station requires a new oath, a new guardian. The protocol dictates that the anchor must be sworn in. I do not have a dress uniform, Aaron said. The suit, the counselor said, looking at the battered metal with new eyes, is more than appropriate. Aaron stood tall. He felt the aches in his body, the pain in his shoulder, the fatigue in his bones. But for the first time in 15 years, he didn't feel heavy. He was ready. The great hall of the Aurora Ring was usually a place of noise, of clinking glasses, political debates, and the hum of commerce. Today, it was a cathedral of silence. The decorative banners from the Unity Festival had been taken down, replaced by the stark, functional lighting of the station's maintenance grid. In the center of the vast circular room stood the core interface, a monolith of obsidian glass and pulsing light that connected directly to the station's artificial brain. It was rarely exposed. Usually, it was hidden behind layers of security fields and holographic curtains. Today, it stood bare, waiting for a touch that could heal the wound in the station's soul. Delegates from every member species of the Alliance stood in concentric circles. There were the amphibious aquatic diplomats in their hovering tanks, the rock-skinned Gorn, standing like boulders, the ethereal kestrel delegates perched on high railings, and the humans looking small and anxious in their dress uniforms. Mia Torres stood at the front of the human delegation. She was wringing her hands, her eyes fixed on the great doors at the far end of the hall. "Is he coming?" whispered a junior aide. "He said he would," Mia replied quietly. "But Aaron has a history of finding the nearest exit when people start looking at him." "If he does not show," Lord Varric's voice drifted over from the Sarathi section, "we proceed with the standard reboot. My team is ready to take over the manual override." Varric stood tall, though his posture was less arrogant than usual. The failed energy surge had damaged his reputation, but he was a master of spin. He had already positioned himself as the only one with the resources to fix the mess, conveniently ignoring that he had caused it. "We wait," Queen Kayla said. She stood opposite Varric, her silver armor gleaming under the harsh lights. She was not wearing her helmet today. Her face was severe, her eyes scanning the room with the intensity of a predator watching the tree line. "The protocol demands an anchor." "The protocol is archaic," Varric scoffed. "We do not need a mythical architect to type in a password." The massive blast doors at the end of the hall began to groan. The sound of heavy hydraulics hissed through the silence. The doors parted. Aaron Cole did not walk in wearing a tuxedo. He did not walk in wearing a freshly pressed captain's uniform. He walked in wearing the suit. The Mark II environmental exosuit was a roadmap of the last 48 hours. The left leg was scorched black from the energy surge. The chest plate bearing the hand-scrawled legend, "Percussive Maintenance Zone," was dented inward where the ceiling had collapsed on him. The orange paint on the shoulder was almost entirely gone, scraped away, to reveal dull, gray steel. It whirred. It clanked. It hissed steam from a microfracture in the elbow joint. Thud. 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 Every step was a declaration. A ripple of nervous laughter ran through the Sarathi delegation. A few human diplomats covered their faces in embarrassment. "He is wearing the trash can," someone whispered. Aaron heard them. Inside the helmet, his face was pale and slick with sweat, but his eyes were steady. "Betsy," Aaron murmured. "Audio output to external speakers. Volume level 7. Volume set," the AI chirped. "Do try not to burp, Aaron. The acoustics in here are fantastic." Aaron walked down the central aisle. He passed the Gorn, who nodded in respect at the heaviness of his tread. He passed the Fenrathi, who watched him with wide golden eyes. He stopped in front of the human delegation. He winked at Mia Torres behind his visor. Sorry I am late." Aaron's voice boomed through the hall, metallic and slightly distorted. "Had to jump-start the suit with a toaster. Batteries are not what they used to be." He turned to face the core interface. And Lord Varric. Varric stepped forward, blocking the path to the monolith. "This is a solemn ceremony, Engineer Cole," Varric sneered. "Not a costume party. You have brought your tools." "Are you here to fix the ventilation?" Aaron stopped. The suit hissed. "I am here to fix the leak," Aaron said. "And I am looking at it," the crowd murmured. "Step aside, Varric," Kayla ordered, her hand resting on the hilt of her sword. "He cannot touch the core," Varric insisted, turning to the High Council. "He is a maintenance worker. If he interfaces with the primary drive using that heap of scrap, he could introduce a virus. He could destabilize the magnetic containment." The High Counselor, a venerable elder of the aquatic species, bubbled in his tank. "The Council requires the anchor key. Do you possess it, Engineer Cole?" Aaron raised his left arm. The heavy, rusted gauntlet was shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the damage to the servos. He used his right hand to flip open the hidden panel on the wrist. Under the grime, the interface port shone like a new coin. "I have the key," Aaron said. "Stolen," Varric accused quickly. "He must have looted it from the wreckage of the industrial sector. That key belongs to the lead architect. It is property of the Alliance." Aaron laughed. It was a dry, tired sound. "You really do not get it, do you, Varric?" Aaron asked. "You think the suit is just metal. You think the title is just a word." He stepped around Varric. The Sarathi Lord tried to hold his ground, but the sheer mass of the Mark II forced him to step back or be crushed. Aaron stood before the core interface. It was smooth, flawless, and terrifying. "Okay, Betsy," Aaron whispered. "Time to introduce ourselves." "Initiating handshake protocol," Betsy replied. "Good luck, boss." Aaron jammed his wrist into the interface slot. Click. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The core interface flared. A beam of blue light shot up into the dome ceiling, scattering into 1,000 data streams that rained down around the hall like digital snow. The main holographic screen above the dais flickered to life. It displayed a spinning DNA helix matching the biosigns from the man inside the rusted suit. System alert legacy connection detected. Scanning biometrics. Retina match confirmed. Pulse match confirmed. The text turned a deep royal gold. "Welcome back, Anchor Architect 1. Identity: Aaron Cole, rank founder." The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavy enough to crush a starship. Varric stared at the screen. His mouth open-closed and opened again. "Founder. That is impossible. There were only 3 founders. They retired. They left." "2 of them did," Aaron said. His voice was no longer amplified. He had turned off the speakers, but the room was so quiet that everyone could hear him through the open vents of his helmet. He kept his hand locked into the machine. "Sarah went back to Mars. David retired to the colonies. But someone had to stay." Aaron looked at the screen, watching the code cascade code he had written 15 years ago. Someone had to make sure the patches held. Someone had to watch the stress fractures. "You were the junior engineer," Mia Torres gasped, stepping forward. "That was your file. You carried the toolboxes." "I demoted myself," Aaron said, not looking at her. "After the test fire, after the people died, I could not be the architect anymore. I could not be the man who sat in the tower and made the decisions that killed people. So I erased the file. I became the guy who fixes the mistakes, not the guy who makes them." He turned his head inside the helmet to look at the council. "I hid," Aaron said. "I'll let you mock the suit. I let you laugh at the rust. Because every time I looked at this suit, I saw the people I did not save. I thought if I stayed in the shadows, I could keep you safe without having to lead you." He took a deep breath. "But I was wrong. Shadows do not stop monsters." He glanced at Varric. "They just give them a place to hide." Aaron turned back to the console. His fingers, clumsy in the thick gloves, flew across the holographic keyboard. "System," Aaron commanded. "Execute Protocol Sunlight." Protocol Sunlight engaged. The screen changed. It brought up a complex web of red lines, the ghost channels Varric had used to manipulate the power grid. "These are the back doors," Aaron said, his voice hard. "I built them to save the station in an emergency. Lord Varric used them to play God." "I did what was necessary," Varric shouted, panic rising in his voice. "I stabilized the grid." "You routed power through a residential block to save a profit margin," Aaron retorted. "System isolate user Varric. Trace all command logs for the last 48 hours. Cross-reference with the ghost channel signatures." Processing. Match found. User Varric identified as source of unauthorized energy redirection. The data spilled out for everyone to see. The timestamps, the commands, the override of the safety protocols that Aaron had warned them about. "He tried to wipe it," Aaron said. "But you cannot wipe the core logs when the man who wrote the logging software is standing right here." The High Counselor turned his 4 eyes toward Varric. "Is this accurate, Lord Varric?" Varric looked for an escape. He looked at his guards, but they were backing away. He looked at the other Sarathi, but they were looking at the floor, distancing themselves from the failure. "I acted in the interest of the Alliance," Varric stammered. "He is biased. He is emotional." "I am emotional," Aaron agreed. "I am very emotional about children not getting vaporized." Aaron typed one final command. "Command revoke access. Target Varric. Status permanent." The lights on Varric's ceremonial collar died. The datapad in his hand went blank. The automated doors behind him locked. "Lord Varric," the High Counselor boomed. You are stripped of your rank. You are stripped of your title. You are hereby remanded to the custody of the Station Safety Committee." "Prison," Varric sneered, trying to salvage some dignity. "You cannot imprison a Sarathi lord." "Not prison," Aaron interrupted. He pulled his hand from the interface. The connection severed with a hiss of steam. "I have a better idea." Aaron turned to face the fallen lord. "The station needs safety inspectors. People crawl into tight spaces. People check the sewage recyclers for clogs. People can read the boring logs that nobody else wants to read." Aaron grinned behind his visor. "You wanted to control the station, Varric, fine. You can inspect every inch of it, starting with the waste management sector. 12 hours a shift. No robots. Just you and a manual." Varric's face went pale violet. "Manual labor, that is barbaric." "That is justice," Kayla said, stepping up beside Aaron. "Take him away." The security drones moved in. Varric was escorted out, shouting threats that nobody listened to. The hall was quiet again. But the tension had shifted. It was no longer fear. It was anticipation. The system pinged. "Reset complete. System integrity. 100%. New Guardian profile required. Please remove helmet for biometric scan." The words flashed on the giant screen. Aaron stood frozen. He hadn't taken his helmet off in public in 15 years. The helmet was his shield. It was the only thing that separated Aaron, the man, from Aaron, the failure. "Do it," a small voice whispered in his ear. Not Betsy. He looked to his right. Kayla was there. "They need to see you," Kayla said softly. "Not the suit. You." Aaron lifted his hands. The servos whined. He gripped the locking seals at his neck. Hiss! The pressure seal broke. A plume of stale air escaped. Aaron lifted the heavy, battered helmet. He pulled it up and off. His hair was matted with sweat. His face was smeared with grease and soot. He had a 3-day stubble that was turning gray at the chin. There was a fresh cut on his cheekbone from where the helmet padding had slammed into him during the collapse. He looked exhausted. He looked old. He looked human. He blinked in the harsh light, his eyes adjusting. He looked out at the thousands of faces. He didn't see judgment anymore. He was curious. He took a breath of the room's air. It smelled of perfume and ozone, but for the first time it didn't smell of fear. Aaron Cole stood revealed. The architect, the janitor, the guardian. And then movement caught his eye. Queen Kayla of the Fenrathi took a step forward. She moved to the center of the dais, placing herself directly between Aaron and the crowd. She stopped. She looked at him. Her expression was unreadable. Then slowly, deliberately, she lowered herself. The silver armor clinked against the floor. Kayla dropped to one knee. She bowed her head, exposing the vulnerable nape of her neck, the ultimate sign of trust in Fenrathi culture. She placed her right fist over her heart. The sound of the queen kneeling echoed through the hall. On behalf of the children saved during the test fire, Kayla's voice rang out, clear and strong, without amplification. She looked up, her eyes locking onto Aaron's. On behalf of the children of Habitation 3, who sleep safely tonight because of your sacrifice. She lowered her head again. I, Kayla, of the Fenrathi bow before the guardian of Aurora. A gasp tore through the assembly. A queen never bowed, not to a human, not to a mechanic. Aaron stood there, his helmet tucked under his arm, his mouth slightly open. He felt tears prickling his eyes, hot and sudden. Then a shuffling sound. From the Gorn delegation, the massive stone ambassador rumbled. He did not kneel. His anatomy made it difficult. But he slammed a massive fist against his chest, the sound like a falling boulder. Guardian, the Gorn rumbled. From the aquatic tanks, the diplomats pressed their webbed hands against the glass. And then the humans. Mia Torres was crying openly now. She bowed her head. The technicians behind her bowed. It wasn't a submission. It was a wave of gratitude that washed over the hall. Aaron felt his knees shaking. He wanted to put the helmet back on. He wanted to hide, but he couldn't. Then, the line of diplomats broke. A small figure darted out. It was a Fenrathi cub barely 5 years old, fur fluffing out in excitement. Behind him ran a human child. They scrambled up the dais, ignoring the protocol droids. The cub stopped in front of Aaron. He held out a small, dirty hand. In his palm was a piece of twisted metal. It was slang from the industrial sector. It was ugly, burnt and sharp. "For you," the cub chirped. "A medal." Aaron looked at the piece of trash. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He dropped to one knee painfully, his suit groaning, so he was eye level with the kid. He took the piece of metal. "Thank you," Aaron whispered, his voice thick. "This is better than gold." The human child reached out and touched the dent in Aaron's chest plate. "Does it hurt?" she asked. Aaron looked at the dent. Then he looked at Kayla, who was standing up now, smiling at him. "No," Aaron said, smiling through the tears running down his dirty face. "It does not hurt anymore." An hour later, the ceremony had dissolved into a chaotic, joyful reception. The barriers were down. Mechanics were drinking with dukes. Aaron had escaped. He stood in a quiet observation corridor on the upper deck, looking out at the stars. He had put the helmet back on his belt, but he was still wearing the suit. He felt naked without it. "You realize," a voice said behind him, "that you are now the most eligible bachelor in the quadrant." Aaron turned. Kayla was leaning against the doorway. She had removed her heavy ceremonial cape, looking slightly more relaxed. "I am a mechanic with a broken workshop and a suit that smells like gym socks," Aaron said. "I doubt I am going to be on the cover of any magazines." "You would be surprised what people find attractive," Kayla said, walking over to join him at the window. "Integrity has a certain appeal." "Integrity does not pay the rent," Aaron sighed. "I seriously do not have a job, Kayla. I fired myself as an architect 15 years ago, and I think I just disqualified myself from maintenance by arresting the boss." "The Alliance will rebuild your workshop," Kayla said. "Better than before, with windows." "I like windows," Aaron mused. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the repair drones buzzing around the scar on the station's hull, like fireflies. "That was a bold move," Aaron said quietly. "Kneeling. You are a queen. You are not supposed to bow to the help." "You are not the help, Aaron," Kayla said. She turned to face him, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "You are the foundation, and a house that does not respect its foundation will fall." She reached out and touched his hand, his bare hand, as he had taken the glove off. Her skin was warm. "Besides," she added, a mischievous glint in her eyes, "I figured if I embarrassed you in front of the entire galaxy, you would be forced to hang around just to clear your name." "Is that your plan?" Aaron chuckled. "Keep me around as a political prop." "No," Kayla said. Her voice dropped, becoming softer, more intimate. "I was thinking about the Fenrathi Palace in my homeworld. It is very old, drafty. The heating system is a nightmare. It makes this terrible clanking sound in the winter." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? Terrible," Kayla confirmed. "We have had engineers look at it for centuries. None of them can fix it. I suspect it needs a specific touch. Someone who listens to pipes." Aaron looked at her. He saw the offer beneath the words. It wasn't just a job. It was a life. A place where he wouldn't have to hide. "Well," Aaron said, scratching his stubble, "I am pretty expensive. I charge double for weekends, and I require unlimited coffee." "We have excellent coffee," Kayla said, "and on the weekends we can negotiate." "In that case," Aaron said, leaning back against the railing, "I suppose I could take a look. I could check the heating system in your palace for the rest of my life. You know, just to be thorough." Kayla smiled. It wasn't the smile of a queen. It was the smile of the girl who had been caught by a rusty hand in the dark. "I would like that," she whispered. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. The promise was there, hanging in the air, like the hum of the station's drive, constant, invisible, and keeping them alive. Epilogue, 3 months later. The Aurora ring was whole again. The scar where the industrial sector had been was gone, replaced by a gleaming new fabrication module. It was larger, brighter, and at Aaron's insistence painted a cheerful bright orange. On the observation deck, looking down at the Grand Plaza, 2 figures stood watching the scene below. The plaza was now a park. Real grass had been imported, and in the center there was a playground. Children of all species were running. A Gorn child was acting as a climbing frame for 3 human toddlers. A Sarathi hatchling was chasing a drone. And in the middle of it all, a group of Fenrathi cubs and human kids were playing a game. One of them was wearing a cardboard box painted orange. He was stomping around making clanking noises, while the others pretended to be stuck in a fire made of red ribbons. "I am the Rusty Guardian," the boy in the box shouted. "Grab my hand." "No, I want to be the Rusty Guardian," a girl argued. Above them, the real Aaron Cole leaned against the glass and laughed. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing a clean jumpsuit, blue this time, with a simple silver pin on the collar. The pin was shaped like a wolf's head, crafted from the slag of the old workshop. "They are fighting over who gets to be the garbage man," Aaron shook his head. "I never thought I would see the day." "They are fighting over who gets to be the hero," Kayla corrected him. She was standing next to him, wearing a simple tunic instead of her armor. She looked relaxed, happy. "The suit is finished, by the way," Aaron said. "Repaired, reinforced. I hung it in the main display case in the new workshop." "You are not wearing it anymore?" Kayla asked. "No," Aaron said. "It is there if we need it, locked and loaded. But I figured the station was running smoothly. The core is stable. Maybe I do not need the armor to keep the walls up anymore." "Good," Kayla said. She slipped her arm through his. "Because armor is heavy, and you have other things to carry now." "Like what?" "Like the future," Kayla said simply. A vibration ran through the floor, a tiny, almost imperceptible shudder. Aaron froze, his head tilted. "Did you feel that?" Aaron asked. "Feel what? Deck 4. Hydro pump number 6. The bearings are wearing out. It is vibrating at a frequency of 40 hertz. Kayla sighed, shaking her head with a smile. "You are impossible. We are supposed to be on vacation." "I am just saying," Aaron said, already pulling a small silver hydro spanner from his pocket. "If that pump goes, the fountain in the park stops working. And the kids love that fountain." He looked at her. "Want to come hold the flashlight?" Kayla looked at the man she loved. She looked at the spanner in his hand. She looked at the peace in his eyes. "Always," the Wolf Queen said. "If the station breaks again," Aaron said, taking her hand and leading her toward the lift. "At least this time we will fix it together." They walked away from the window, leaving the view of the stars behind them, heading down into the guts of the machine, ready to keep the world spinning for one more day.